Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Donuts podcast. I'm your host, Justin. I'm so glad that you're listening again. Thanks so much for tuning in one more time. A lot of you are listening on Samsung Podcast, and it's really given me a deeper, greater appreciation for non-iPhone phones. So thank you so much. Um, Thank you for watching now my fifth episode. I did a little bit of a spoofy episode that I changed to it's an exclusive now. So if you want to subscribe to Apple Podcasts and listen to it there, it was like just my first one. It was bad. It was an hour long, and it was more than an hour long. It was bad. And then I did a little bit of a short one on that brand new short, I guess, the little musical with Bob, Sideshow Bob from last week. So I hope you enjoyed that. But so here we are. We're on episode 4 of season 1. We're getting through this, and it's this episode's called "There's No Disgrace Like Home." I've got trivia. I've got episode recaps. So let's get into it, shall we? All right, so last episode, Homer's Odyssey, was a deep and dark, but still very poignant episode, and I hope that you had an opportunity to give it some thought. And same questions on this one too. Give this episode some thought. Let me know what you think. Hit me up on Twitter or X.com. I still think it's weird to say that, but anyway, I'm on X at donuts742. You can also email me at shartenpants@gmail.com. So let's do this, shall we? All right, let's get into it. So this episode, season 1, episode 4, "There's No Disgrace Like Home," originally aired January 28th, 1990. There are no guest stars. We've already talked about that before. There's not like an actual like celebrity guest star yet, but some notable ones coming soon, like Tom Jones. And if you know who Tom Jones is, you probably need an ibuprofen because your back hurts, like mine. So, yeah. This episode is pretty interesting in a lot of ways. Um, we talked a little bit in last episode about Mr. Burns and how he had telltale signs of a little bit of integrity, and then in this episode, it fixes that, and it kind of sets the stage for his deplorable lack of integrity as the nuclear plant owner. And so it was just, that's why last episode was so interesting in many ways. But this one's back on track with the character that we know as Mr. Burns. It's got some telltale signs of being one of the earliest shows of the season. Like we've talked about, they were released out of order, but you can definitely tell this is one of the earlier ones. A lot of the characters just act differently and they look differently. Like, all right, so we'll talk about this in greater detail. Hopefully, you watched the episode, you did your homework. But you see at the picnic, Lisa's a brat. I mean, you see it at home too when she's fighting with Bart. But Lisa's a brat. She's like playing in the fountain and then pretends she's not. Marge is a drunk, and Homer is concerned that his family is going to make him look bad. Homer being concerned about something like that is in and of itself just crazy. But also, Homer's the voice of reason. He comes home and the whole family's sitting on the couch eating TV dinners and watching TV, and he's the one that turns it off. So, um, yeah, very very different. But like I said, this evolves into what we know. So we're gonna walk through each of the episodes and see how they got there. This is the first episode that Mr. Burns says release the hounds. He says it a little differently. He says the hounds will be released in 10 minutes, but still, release the hounds, something we're used to from him. It also marked the first appearance of Eddie and Lou, who are the two police officers who are always together. Although Lou, who's we know is an African American Simpsonite, is yellow in this episode, but then gets that change and moving on. This is the first episode where we see Itchy and Scratchy. So lots of firsts, just like the other episodes that we've seen so far, and we'll get into it. So here's how the episode begins. The two gags are the chalkboard gag is Bart is writing, "I will not burp in class," and the couch gag is the family runs in, they sit on the couch, and then Homer is squeezed off and then lands down on the floor with a thud. So those are the gags, and we get into the episode. So it starts off at home, and family's fighting, and but they're getting ready for a company picnic, and they decide to bring wonderful gelatin desserts. Dan Castellaneta, his voice very interesting in his early Homers. Really glad that it evolved into the Homer we know, because these are hard to watch. And so anyway, they're getting ready for the company picnic, and Homer's worried that his family will be well behaved, and he snipes at Marge a lot in this episode too. He's like, "Marge, stop it!" It's just so weird. I'm reminded that first of all, there was a reason that I avoided these seasons over the years, but also I see the downside to avoiding them, and what I've missed out on, because I've seen all the other episodes, at least the first 10 seasons, many times, but not these first two seasons. So anyway, well, I hope you enjoyed them. Still a great episode. Homer is determined to improve his family's image after they leave the picnic. And he decides, Homer J. Simpson, decides he's going to pawn the TV to pay for family therapy with Dr. Marvin Monroe. And Marge is crying as it's happening. So just, again, very weird family dynamics. Marge gets completely blackout drunk almost at the party too. So that was interesting. The therapy session doesn't go well, but I strongly recommend watching the therapy session multiple times, because it is freaking funny. And we'll talk about that more later too. But the therapy was great. Those foam bats were great, especially when they figure out how to take off the foam. And I can still hear the sound of that rod hitting Dr. Monroe's shin when Bart whacks him. It's pretty awesome. Great sound. And then the shock therapy. Oh my gosh. What a scene. I loved it. I've always loved cartoon violence, but this one in particular, great scene. So anyway, yeah, it doesn't go well. Dr. Monroe struggles to control them, the Simpsons, their chaotic interactions with each other, and the shock therapy was a desperate attempt to instill order, but ultimately he gives up and he refunds their money and admits defeat. And then you remember from the commercial, it said, "Family bliss or I'll double your money back." So they made money on the deal. So the Simpsons leave. No better behaved than before, but with a renewed appreciation for each other's quirks, in my opinion. Plus $500 instead of $250, which of course they go and spend on a better TV, which is identical to their other one, but whatever. So there's some particular highlights in this episode about the Simpsons' dysfunctional yet loving family dynamic, and that we see throughout the series. They're very dysfunctional but very loving. That never actually goes away. It's a little more prominent in the first couple of seasons, but there's always still that instilled love in the family dynamic. But it satirizes, it makes fun of the idea of the perfect family, which I thought was great too, because there isn't one. Like that perfect family at the beginning that drives up into heaven with halos on their heads. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I didn't want to go in that car. I wanted to go back in the Simpsons car with all the devil kids. It just looked more entertaining for me. Truth be told, it still does. But it also features some early characterizations that would later be refined, such as Lisa being portrayed as more mischievous than Bart, and Marge having a drinking problem. So, still a very interesting episode. So now let's kind of get into the analysis and the discussion. Here's the thing: I'll have future podcasts where somebody else here is with me, and we can go back and forth, and that'll be great. But the discussion I'm really looking for is with you. So, like, that's why I've set up that, I've got my email address, I set up the Twitter, so that we can have like a discussion. You make fun of me or whatever you want, that's fine. But if you actually want to have a philosophical discussion about these episodes, hit me up. I geek out about this kind of stuff, but I want it to be an open dialogue. So, for example, if you were to analyze the disastrous picnic scenes, like Bart versus the Swans, or Lisa in the fountain, or Marge drunk, what do you get from that? What are your thoughts on it? Are they just like mine, like, oh, I'm really glad the characters redeveloped in a better way? Or do you gather something else from that picnic? Uh, let's talk about Dr. Marvin Monroe. Is he a quack or is he a genius? I mean, ultimately, when it comes to the Simpsons family dynamic, he failed, but is he a quack or is he a genius? I mean, it seems to be working with other families. Um, what about his therapy methods, like his the family feuds, or like drawing the pictures at the beginning to see, what where everybody would define where the trouble's coming from, or the sticks, the whacking rods, um, and then eventually the shock therapy. It's that part. I mean, it's obviously satire, that kind of thing. I promise you, as somebody who grew up in the '90s, that wasn't like a generally practiced method of family therapy. I promise. So it was, that was the humor in it. So another question is, how do you think this episode portrays therapy and mental health? And so, from two different angles. First of all, take a step back in time, 34 years. It was 1990. How do you think it was portrayed then? I'll tell you, growing up, I just thought it was funny. I didn't really think much more of it. But therapy wasn't really, it wasn't really as open and accepted as it is now, in my opinion. And now, as someone who goes to therapy, and I recommend it for everyone, by the way. Um, I wish it was different back then. I think the perception of therapy has definitely changed a lot since this episode aired, and I do wish that it was better received back then, and it wasn't such a stigma to get therapy. I know I wouldn't have waited so long to seek some therapeutic advice. And I hope that right now, in today's day, you're open to that. I mean, it's readily available online now. There's lots of places you can go to get help. I promise you, having actual meaningful conversations with people is incredibly therapeutic. Even if you're not diving into like what your real issues are, just having an engaging conversation is terrific. It really is, and I very much, I highly recommend it. But I want to know what you think. Do you think the perception of therapy has changed since the episode aired? Is your answer yes, because it has, or is it no, because you're wrong? So, like, still, tell me your opinion. What about the humor derived from those unethical therapy practices? How do you feel about the humor? So, like this, we get into territory that maybe some people can find offensive. I personally, I'll probably share this more than once. I personally feel like Being offended is something that's controllable. It's in a lot of ways it's a choice. It's my opinion, and you can choose to stick with and let those feelings that somebody put on you control you and dictate how you're going to react, or you can accept that you can't control what they did or said and focus on things that bring you joy. So my thought is, I thought it was funny then, and I think it's funny now, and I certainly hope that nobody would be offended by this satirical mocking of therapy practices, because it's meant to be funny. But also, it's brought the family together, and it still showed some unity, which was great. So, let me know what you think. I'm genuinely curious. How do you think, in terms of the lasting impact of this episode, how do you think this episode holds up today? I want to hear as many people that are on my side of this to continue it. I'm never going to get tired of the debate that the animation was just awful. So please feel free to share that. But more importantly, the other aspects of the episode. How do you think they hold up today? The morals that they were trying to instill and teach in that time. Do you think it holds up? Do you think kids right now in this generation can watch this and gain something from it? Or do you think maybe the kids these days are far too desensitized, more so than we were in the 90s, and it's only ever going to be perceived as entertainment, and that's it, because it's got no deeper meaning or value? Huh? Yeah. Pretty smart sometimes. Do you think that it contributed to any ongoing Simpsons themes or character development? I keep sharing my opinion about character development, but I want to hear about yours. Did you see anything in this episode? Like, for example, the way that Lisa or Marge behaved. Do you think that the writers had that when they saw the portrayal? That's when they decided, we're going to go a different direction. They didn't like it, or I think maybe it was how it was received by popular culture at the time. And speaking of popular culture, how do you think this episode has influenced the depictions of family or therapy in pop culture? These are deep, meaningful conversations that I give a lot of thought to, and I hope you take a minute and tweet about it and just share what you think, because your opinion matters, even if it's wrong, and it might be, but it still matters. Okay, let's get into some obscure trivia and goofs, if you will. Um, so, okay, it's not. They're all goofs. There's not really obscure trivia that I go into in this one, but when Marge gets drunk at the picnic and she falls over at the end of that really awful impromptu song that all the women were singing together, she says, "Homie, did you try the punch?" And her lips don't move in succession with that phrase. And that happens a lot. I mean, at least once in every episode. I was complaining about Chief Wiggum in the last episode. Um, but there's so that's some animation foible. And the next one is when Homer enters the pawn shop. First of all, there's okay, so there is obscure trivia. There's a funny little joke in that I think was intentional by the writers. When Homer walks into the pawn shop, um, first of all, the TV that he's carrying is purple. You can very clearly see that. The pawn shop owner or worker calls him by name. Okay, I think that's very telling and very intentional. It's not because it's a really small town and everybody knows everybody. Okay, he knows Homer at the pawn shop. Okay, that should tell us something, and it's funny. But when he enters the store, the TV is clearly now blue. So yeah, another foible there. And on the way, backing up a little, driving back home from the picnic, after you see the family like floating up into heaven, and Homer gets out of his little daydream. Where's Maggie? And don't tell me that you can't see her because her car seat. No, shut up. You can always see Maggie. They always make it so you can see Maggie. She's just not there. It's lazy writing or lazy animating. Yeah. And the other one we already covered. It's when Lou and and Lou's buddy Eddie. Sorry, I forgot his name for a minute. When Lou is yellow, but very soon after becomes his African American character that he becomes. So another foible there, and I guess along those same lines, Smithers is now yellow, but his hair is blue, and then eventually will turn gray, as we know. So I don't know. Some of those are foibles, just bad animating, and others are just like, well, we haven't decided yet if this person's going to be this look or whatever. So there's that. All right, I've got a fun fact for you. And this is an appearance of this episode in another thing. Okay, so in the 1990 film Die Hard 2, okay, same year that the episodes came out, this episode makes a cameo appearance in Die Hard 2. It's the scene from the clinic, Dr. Monroe's clinic, when they're shocking each other, and it appears on Holly McClane's flight, which is funny. And then there's a funny reference to it that I'm not going to repeat because you should go do your homework and watch that movie. But it's ironic and it's funny what the captain says about it. So anyway, enjoy that. I hope you like it. So I'd love some more engagement from you. So when I ask questions like this here towards the end, I want to know about your family quirks. All right. So the Simpsons, as we know, they've all got some weird quirks, right? If you're comfortable sharing, hop on Twitter and hit me at MMM Donuts 742 and let me know some of your family quirks, right? Is your family crazy? Are they really intelligent? Are they really observant? Are they abusive? Maybe don't share if they're abusive. Let's not do that. Are they obnoxious and they just don't know it? They have quirks that just drive you crazy, or yeah, let me know. And thanks very much for listening to this episode. We'll get over the answers to the trivia questions, and then we'll talk a little bit about the next episode. So the trivia: did you get them right? Yes or no? Here are the questions. Oh my gosh, I never did the trivia questions. Oh my god, I'm not going to re-record. I'm not. So in this episode of the Donuts podcast, I have decided to do the trivia questions and answers all at the very end of the show. See, that was intentional. This is as written. Mm-hmm. So trivia question number one: on the fence surrounding Burns Manor, Burns's Manor, probably Burns Manor. What does the visible sign say? There's one sign that's like not quite visible, but there's one in full view. What does it say? Hey, we're back. It says poachers will be shot. Think about that. Okay. Next, what was the advice Homer's mom gave him? He's sitting at the bar with Moe and Barney and some other drunks, and Homer shares advice. He says, my mom told me something. What was the advice that she gave him? Her advice was, Homer, you're a big disappointment. That's good. That's a good line. All right, last question is, what is the phone number for Dr. Marvin Monroe's family therapy clinic? And that is, you guessed it, 1-800-555-HUGS. Good job. I know you got them all because I know you did the homework. So well done. Well done. Okay, next episode is Bart the General. This is another good one and another bad one at the same time. It's hard to watch, but still it's got some good stuff on there. So I'm looking forward to it. So please tune in every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. I'll have these scheduled to go out. So thanks so much again for listening. Please do your homework for next episode. Watch Bart the General and see if you can get the trivia, which I'll totally do correctly every episode. I'm probably going to forget that again. So thanks again. I really appreciate it. Find me on Twitter donuts742 or email me at shardonpants@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody.
Miss Hooper, I glued my head to my shoulder.